shadows come, why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me, and His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. And I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches over me. And I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. Oh yes, I'm free, and His eye is on the sparrow. Over me.
All right, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you for gathering us, singing us into this space. For those gathered in this room and online, welcome. We're continuing our campus worship series called What's Your Story? And we'll get to that in just a little bit more, in just a minute or two. For this 50 minutes of time, we just ask that you lean in to be fully present with one another, and that also means keeping screens away unless prompted to get them out. We think that that's possible in this space, and so please join us in that effort. There will not be another time where this particular group of people is gathered in the room together. We just honor that, what's unique about a gathering like this in a particular time, and also recognize that God is with us in this space. Might we open ourselves fully to the presence of God and Spirit with us. Today, as I said, we pick up our series, What's Your Story? And this is with Deanna Durham, Associate Professor of Social Work and Sociology, and also Program Director of our Social Work Program. This series features faculty and staff sharing reflections on their sense of call and vocation, and by that we mean like meaning and purpose and how that's expressed through their lives. Deanna's reflection is titled, Hold His Hand, He's Your Brother, and Other Things I've Learned. As we've reviewed and planned for this service, Deanna has spoken into every aspect of it. inviting McInto to lead music, the scripture passage, the reflections that come, and even allowing her partner Byron Peachy to introduce her. I don't know if that's how it worked, but we're really glad that you're here as well, Byron. Byron's a recent retiree from EMU. One time served with me as campus pastor and then later a director of our intercultural program. And it's good. It feels like a reunion. These are the prompts for the storytelling and reflections. So this is the starting place from which Deanna launched. Who or what impacted and inspired your sense of who you were growing up? And what gave you meaning? And how has your faith or spirituality informed your sense of calling and vocation purpose? And how are you continuing to lean into the fullness of your sense of calling and vocation in your present work and life? We'll hear a lot more about that. We're opening this time together with a video from Sweet Honey in the Rock. There's an invitation from them to join in singing the refrain, and I hope you'll do so.
I'll be reading Isaiah 61, verses 1 through 4. The good news of deliverance. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our Lord, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who mourn in Zion, to give them a garland instead of ashes, to the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a faint spirit. They will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord to display his glory. They shall build up the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastations. They shall repair the ruined cities, the devastations of many generations.
Good morning. So that was Sweet Honey in the Rock, a group that was formed in Washington, D.C., which Deanna will talk about. We would have gone to hear them perform live many times over the years in Washington. I'll just, as I introduce Deanna, ask you to notice the books that are here. Something that's very, very dear to Deanna would be the flowers here in front, as well as the candle that's lit. Many of you don't need an introduction to Deanna because maybe you've stopped into her office on your way into Roselawn 2nd, or you've had her in class, or perhaps you've read about something she's been involved with in the weather vane. For the past 23 years, Deanna has shown up in a lot of places around campus, sometimes in public ways, often behind the scenes, problem solving, advocating for positive change. Deanna and I have been married for almost 40 years, and we met working at the Community of Hope in Washington, D.C. You'll hear more about that organization and that community from her. One thing I've learned about Deanna over these years, likely others of you have as well, is that when she decides to be a part of something, she goes into it 100%. So her teaching, her relationships with students, her planning and leading of intercultural programs here in Harrisonburg, but also in Central America, the U.S.-Mexico border, in Spain, and also her work with student clubs and organizations and community organizations. And I would say, too, our marriage, as I think about it, we've been 100% married these past many years, to both of our benefit, I would say. So as Deanna shares now about 4 significant formation stories from her life, listen not just to her reflections, but listen for the ways her stories might touch something in you, something that might kindle a spark, a purpose, a path, for your own life. Deanna.
Gotta turn this on, right? Is that good? Can you all hear me? All right. Well, good morning. Do you want me to move that? I'm not using that. Thanks. And thanks for being here. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I always feel comfortable in front of students, but when we get grown-ups in the crowd, it's a little more intimidating. There have been many people and places that have formed my theology, philosophy of teaching, and my ways of showing up in the world. This morning I'll focus on 4 specific stories with a special emphasis on women, since this is Women's History Month, and on my professional field of social work, since it's also National Social Workers Month. I am finishing my 23rd year here at EMU, and I will be retiring in June after leading a 6-week cross-cultural to Spain with 19 EMU students. So formation story number 1, my mom. Catherine Mary Simon was born in 1918 in Filer, Idaho, to her first-generation immigrant German parents who had crossed the Atlantic by ship and entered through Ellis Island. She was the oldest of 7 children. At age 13, her mother, Sophia, died in childbirth. My mother was able to complete 6th grade and then took on the responsibility of raising her siblings and helping her father farm. She married my father, Robert, at age 22 and had 5 children of her own. I was her last child. A bit of a surprise. She was 42. My father died at age 47 when I was 2. My 2 oldest siblings were already gone from the house. That left my mom, me, my brother Bob, 6 years older, and my brother Freddie, 10 years older than me. Next slide, please. Freddie, blue star, had mental retardation. That's what we called it then. My mother made a deliberate decision to care for Freddie in our home and not commit him to a mental institution, even though there was a lot of pressure to do so. In the 50s and 60s, we didn't know much about intellectual disabilities, and often a child born with any mental incapacity was put away in an insane asylum or mental institution. My mother chose to keep Freddie at home, which was a bold and unpopular act. I grew up playing with Freddie on the floor with Lincoln logs and loading up our little red wagon with a hay bale for Freddie to pull to feed our sheep. We had chickens, rabbits, dogs, cats, all of which Freddie enjoyed holding and eating and petting. Not eating. Oh my goodness. Freddie was strong and he gave really tight bear hugs. He was also the best green bean snapper of the family, carefully snapping each bean into 1-inch pieces for canning. He would hold them against his finger and then snap it. So our family was different. Freddie was a monster to some, scary, misunderstood, and many in our farm community kept their distance from him when they saw us in public. When I was around 9, I clearly remember my mother and I walking, each of us holding one of Freddie's hands, down the main street in our little town of Filer, Idaho. He was between us. I saw a classmate coming towards me, and I dropped his hand. I'm guessing I felt shame or embarrassment, and I knew that several of my classmates had been told that they weren't allowed to visit our home because of Freddie. Step or two after I dropped his hand, my mother stopped walking. She turned to me and she said, "He's your brother. Hold his hand. He's your brother. Hold his hand." And then she added, "If he's not welcome somewhere, we're not going." Her response has been etched in my heart for over 55 years now, as if it was yesterday. There were a lot of places that didn't know what to do with Freddie, and we were not welcome. By the mid-1970s, there was a court ruling. It's called the Dixon Mandate. It required mental hospitals to release anyone that wasn't a danger to society or themselves, with the goal of providing community-based support instead of institutional support. It wasn't long before a few more people like my brother started showing up in our community and across the country. Schools began encouraging parents to bring their children with mental retardation, intellectual disabilities to school, though they would remain completely separated from regular students for many more years. My mother was crystal clear. Difference should not equal exclusion or separation. So now, would you be willing to take the hand of the person next to you and ask yourself, is there any place this person whose hand I'm holding wouldn't be welcome? Is there any place this person whose hand I'm holding wouldn't be welcome? And what would I be willing to do about that? Thanks, Mom. Kento's going to play before my next story.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. Oh, we sing, bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. He has done great things. He has done great things. He has done great things. Bless His holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. We sing, bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name.
Thank you, Kento. Formation story number 2, church. I arrived in Washington, D.C. in December 1982 to begin what I thought would be a one-year volunteer internship at the Community of Hope. It was a church, social service agency, sold my little yellow pickup with the orange roll bar so I could buy my first plane ticket, and traveled 2,500 miles across the country. Packed one suitcase, a few books, boarded my first flight. I was picked up at the airport and driven to 1417 Belmont Street, that apartment building, where I moved into a third-story apartment in a building that had recently been purchased by the Church of the Nazarene. It was slowly, with volunteer help, being renovated after years of disrepair. Some windows were still boarded up. Few homeless families referred by DC Social Services were living in some of the renovated apartments. My third-floor apartment was a small, intentional Christian faith community. It included a social worker, an EMU student doing her practicum in nutrition, an EMU graduate doing Mennonite voluntary service, a couple of other part-time staff, a child who was being fostered by the social worker, and a cat. Byron joined this intentional community a bit later, where I learned he was a great cook, and he loved reading poetry out loud to anyone who would listen. My first Sunday at Community of Hope found me sitting in a large open room with folding chairs in a semicircle. A small choir began singing, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name." Thank you, McIntyre, for playing that. 40 years later, I can still hear the voices of V, Rita, Mutter, Angela, members of the choir singing this song, inviting all of us to join in. This remarkable collection of folks included nurses, pediatrician, other staff, children, families living in the building, people from the community, and some guests. It was in my first month in DC that I celebrated my first Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Downtown, Archbishop Desmond Tutu spoke and danced, and Sweet Honey in the Rock, the video, sang, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." I was deeply moved by the message and the singing, and I felt completely outside my comfort zone. This was not small town Idaho. Community of Hope was in a low-income, almost all-black neighborhood, which was still recovering from the devastation of the race riots of 1968. From the outside, the neighborhood looked beaten down, blighted, neglected, good candidate for demolition and ongoing urban renewal efforts. What wasn't as noticeable to the untrained eye was that this was also a neighborhood with cohesive threads of community. Neighbors who looked out for each other, loaned one another money, had an extensive network of mutual aid. They believed that the world would be better for the next generation, and they were committed to keep fighting for their children and future generations, fighting absentee landlords who didn't fix leaks or peeling lead paint, fighting for their rights to use vacant lots for gardens, fighting for community development that benefited their immediate community. At Northwest Nazarene College, as a psychology major, I had learned about homelessness and housing problems, as well as advocacy and community organizing. But nothing prepared me for what I saw and experienced firsthand in this community. At Community of Hope, questioning why such inequities existed in our nation's capital was a weekly, sometimes daily quandary. Pastor of the house church brought his Bible, the Washington Post, set them side by side. The troubles of the city were God's concern. He would say, "We aren't preaching the gospel. We are being the gospel." Church wasn't a place. It was an active daily commitment, addressing unjust systems, creating alternatives when possible. Doing church, being church, meant raising money, challenging suburban churches whose congregations had fled the city, and advocating for city funds to be redistributed for education, health, and housing. Church happened every single day, with Sundays being the day when we took a break, sang together, ate together, renewed our strength for the coming week. My ideas of Christian faith and church were stretched, challenged, and transformed. My focus at the Community of Hope were children and youth. We had a daily after-school program, evening mentoring program, summer program, and the college scholarship program. Intelligence, hard work, commitment were not lacking in these children. I began to understand and see that unequal resources, limited access, and blatant discrimination were the major obstacles to the success of the children and youth I got to work with every day. Most of the children I knew finished high school, some finished college. I'm still in touch with many of them, and I enjoy getting their updates. The Community of Hope modeled for me that professionals, whether psychologist, nurse, social worker, teacher, pastor, can do their work best by walking up the street, sitting on the front porch of the apartment building, taking a walk with someone down to the store for a Coke, or joining a large group at a congressional hearing on housing. It also meant not being able to solve problems sometimes, just being present. I experienced sitting beside an 11-year-old boy on the steps as he sobbed after learning that his baby brother had starved to death in our nation's capital. All I could offer Roland in that moment was to sit beside him. Child welfare system had removed his baby brother from his family, placed the child with another family member. The nearly two-year-old suffered from failure to thrive and died from lack of food. I had planned to stay a year at Community of Hope and ended up being there 16 years. Early on, I was naive, ignorant, and unprepared for the complex challenges I collided with most days. It soon became clear that more education could be helpful, and I was encouraged to consider attending Howard University, a historically Black university in Washington, D.C., 6 blocks away from where I was living and working. Thank you, Community of Hope. Formation story number 3, Dr. Joyce Ladner, Howard University. After 3 years at Community of Hope, I'd had enough experience to know there was a lot I didn't know. I wanted to better understand the complex history of DC and our country, so I enrolled at Howard at age 25. Sociologist Dr. Joyce Ladner taught my first class at Howard, social policy. She was born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, began her fight for social justice as a teenager when she helped organize an NAACP youth chapter in her hometown. Dr. Ladner's career was shaped through her firsthand involvement with the civil rights movement. She continued her education and brought to the classroom her lived experience and vast knowledge of how systems can and do change when there's enough pressure. In class, Dr. Ladner recounted how she was attempting to register to vote 3 times while in college in Mississippi. She kept failing the literacy test each time. They would change the questions, so you could never really prepare. Once the registrar asked her, "Define the duties of a good citizen." She wrote, "A good citizen is one who follows just and fair laws. And a good citizen is one who disobeys unfair and unjust laws." She failed that test. One day in class, Dr. Ladner brought a New York Times with her picture on the front. The article described her arrest and jail time she received for trying to go into a church, a white church. In class, she asked if anyone else had similar stories or what our thoughts were about civil disobedience. Plenty in my master's cohort related their own stories, told of times they had been in really difficult places. I didn't know what civil disobedience actually was, nor had I ever had the experience any experience that could compare. As the semester went on, it was clear to Dr. Ladner that I had a lot to learn. And one day she put it aptly, "Deanna, you don't know shit." In class, we talked about civil rights legislation that had been passed, but had not yet been realized. There was fierce resistance to integration, equal pay, and even basic human rights. I was keenly aware of large gaps in economic opportunities and in educational support for the children and young adults with whom I worked. And it was my beginning of understanding larger systemic challenges. As a sociologist, Dr. Ladner rejected the idea of value neutrality, where researchers strive to keep their own personal values and beliefs from influencing the interpretation of data, and conclusions drawn in sociological research. She argued that research is inherently influenced by societal values, by power structures, and by context. She asserted that the social sciences should actively aim to improve society and support values like human dignity, human freedom, fairness, rather than remain neutral. Through my classes, I had to confront my own racism, how I benefited from a system that didn't see me as suspicious or angry or dangerous. What I learned in my master's program at Howard University helped me better understand much of what was underneath the surface of what I saw and experienced at the Community of Hope every day. These two worlds were in dialogue with each other. I looked at maps and documents at the Library of Congress, read about failed policies for 3 years of graduate school, and I often walked out of class with a mixture of some shame, anger, and resolve. Learning new information was important, drilled down in me that ignorance is easy. Understanding and comprehension requires deliberate and intentional work, both academic and in real life. I took children to public swimming pools, where we were told we weren't welcome. I watched in the foyers of local businesses while our youth applied for jobs, and they were told there weren't any openings, even though I'd set up the interviews. Once I stepped forward, there were awkward conversations, though seldom real apologies. For 16 years, I noticed that the children and youth who worked hard and did their best were often met with suspicion and doubt. They felt it in their bodies, and they named how hard it was to keep hoping. Racism, discrimination, exclusion continues. For these past 23 years at EMU, I have worked to bring together the worlds and experiences that students come with and the world of academic study. So many EMU students, including some of you in this room right now, have deepened my awareness and understanding of lived life experience. And you've helped me understand the hills that you're still climbing, to be seen, heard, and valued fully. There's still work to be done. I didn't know shit in 1985. And now in 2026, I'm still learning. I brought along some books that over the past few years have helped me keep learning. Racism Without Racist, The Other Blacklist, Damned Whiteness, Down Girl, The Logic of Misogyny, and several others. I've become intentional about what I read, who I read, where I get involved, how I spend my money. I intentionally work to notice who's in the room, who's in leadership, what are the gender and racial dynamics of a specific situation, and what can I do, should I do, still doing church. Thank you, Dr. Joyce Ladner. Now, question for you. How do you put yourself into spaces that help you learn what you don't know? Who might you spend time with here at EMU? Teammate, classmate, colleague? How can they help you better understand the world beyond your own experience? Okay, last slide. Formation 4, this one's quick. Walk, don't reach. Byron retired almost 2 years ago, and I wondered if it was time for me to retire. I decided I needed 1 more year. Byron and I made our plan to hike the Camino de Santiago in Spain and Portugal last summer. Kept that plan, even though I would return for this final year of work. We began our 180-mile pilgrimage starting in Porto, Portugal, walking north to Santiago de Compostela, where St. James, Santiago, is thought to be buried. This was a pilgrimage, a walk, not a race or competition. No one was timing me or waiting for me at the end. On the second day, I was told by a stranger that I was taking too big of steps and needed to shorten them, especially when going uphill, save my body from painful muscles and joints. That was great advice, and it made a big difference. Before starting, we had heard that along the way, pilgrims will call out, "Buen camino," to one another. Buen camino, wishing each other a good walk, a good path. I hadn't thought much about this ahead of time, but once we got going, it did really move me. There were pilgrims going faster, slower, resting longer, not able to keep going. There were days when I just wanted to get to the end, but Byron would remind me, walk, don't reach. Focus on the present rather than reaching toward getting to the end. Walk, don't reach. So some days I slowed down, walking with no thoughts at all, just observing the canopy of trees, listening to the gurgling water, and noticing the land. Pasture, cows, villages, home gardens. Other days I thought about my aching body and why did I agree to do this? And day by day, each Buen Camino took on new meaning. My path, your path in this life, may it be good, not pain-free. There are uphills and down, some flat periods, some cobblestones, slippery rocks, but may it be a good walk, a good journey. Buen Camino. And so as I come to the end, I got a Kleenex here, of my 23-year Camino here at EMU, I want to wish each of you Buen Camino. Walk, don't reach. Take your time. Notice your feet and your back. Take time to rest. Listen to your body. Walk with others, and sometimes alone. Listen with your heart, and look up into the trees, the sky, the vast unknown. Thank you, EMU. I wish you all a buen camino, and I invite you to turn to those around you and offer those words. Buen camino. Okay.
Thank you so much, Deanna. The phrase, "hold your hand, he's your brother," really, really resonated with me, so thank you. I invite you to take about 2 minutes, turn to a neighbor, or sit by yourself. What is one thing that you heard, something intriguing? What really stood out to you? Maybe there's a phrase, maybe there's a theme, maybe there's something that connects to your story. And then what's one question you have for Deanna? We'll take about 2 minutes, sit by yourself, share with the neighbor, share with the person behind you, and then we'll come back together at the end. Thank you all for sharing. If you have questions or want to talk to Deanna more, I would encourage you to send her an email or even find her after this. This brings us to the end of our campus worship today. I have a couple of announcements before we go, some upcoming things. Tonight at 8 o'clock, there's going to be a documentary screening in the Science Center 106. That's the lecture hall. This is a documentary made by our very own Elizabeth Miller Durstein, who's our new VACA professor this semester. So if you want to go check out her documentary, you can. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. here in Martin Chapel, we'll have a writer's read with Rebecca Kaufman. Rebecca is a local writer, and she's even been an adjunct professor here at EMU. I took a class with her, and she's great. So if you enjoy mysteries and you enjoy reading and writing, you should come to the writer's read tomorrow night. Friday at 4:15 p.m. in the Fishbowl, we'll have a student-led Bible study with Sergio, one of our student chaplains. Sunday night at 7 is Celebration Student-Led Worship in Old Common Grounds or UC 177. And then we won't have Convocation next Wednesday. Convocation will be next Friday in the Student Union. It will be mornings with the mayor. So morning event with Mayor Deanna Reed and some other people who are I don't know what all that will look like, but they'll be there to talk about Women's History Month and EMU. So again, Convocation next Friday, 10:15 in the Student Union. Have a great day. Please scan out on your way out.